once again, my Rafikis. Thank you so much for coming back to this channel, and if it's your very first time coming across this channel, please ensure that you hit the like button and subscribe so that you do not miss videos like this one. This channel brings you videos to do with psychology and travel as well, so that you can see the country Zambia from my eyes, and also you can learn concepts of psychology through this channel. So today we are going to discuss the topic of schema in cognitive psychology. And previously you'd see that one of my videos we discussed the types of psychology, and we explored 8 types of psychology that are very common and widely studied. But today we are going to single out cognitive psychology, and we're going to discuss the concept called schema or schemata. Now, in cognitive psychology, which was broadly studied by a Swiss psychologist, a child psychologist called Piaget, he explored ways in which, as human beings, especially from childhood, we come to learn about different concepts, and one of the most outstanding concepts of those is what he called and referred to as a schema. So, what is a schema? A schema is simply a mental framework. Just in simple terms, it's a mental framework, or in short, it is a folder in our mind that we use to package and also analyze and understand different new concepts that we come across. Just like at the library, usually books are stocked according to topics and according to the years and times that events were happening. And that's also how, as human beings, we come to learn of different concepts, and when we're doing that, we are piling different concepts. In psychology, it's called a schema. Now, schemas are mental representations, like I've already said, that we use to learn facts and also understand our world, the world around us, especially in children. For example, when a child sees a dog for the very first time, that child will create a mental representation that is going to match a dog. And what are those mental representations? Firstly, it barks. Secondly, it is four-legged. It has a tail and it has sort of flappy ears. And that is a schema for a dog. So in the mind of a child, that schema is going to be there. For example, if the child sees a man, the child will have also a mental representation of how a man looks like and also how a woman looks like. Now, what is the mental representation of a man generally? Well, he has a beard like myself, he has a deep voice, sometimes he's muscular. Those are the mental representations of a man. And so you should understand that this little kid, a baby, is going to have those mental representations of all different objects and items and things that a child is going to keep experiencing as the child is growing. Remember, children are born and then they find new concepts in the world, and they have to learn those new concepts. Now, as the schemas, a child keeps building those schemas and also keeps building mental representations or the folders of each new object that the child learns. Remember, these objects are different because they have sometimes fine qualities. For example, a dog has the same schema, but remember, there are different types of dogs. So the child now has to learn the fine qualities of each object or item so that they do not confuse it. And also at the same time, there are other similar objects that the child may not have seen before, but they do not belong to the same category. And therefore now, my friends, I'm going to introduce you under the same topic to 3 different concepts that we discuss whenever we're talking about schemas. And the first of those is assimilation. Assimilation has to do with absorbing something, to assimilate it. And then we're going to talk about accommodation. Accommodation means creating some more space for some new concept in psychology to get in. And then we're going to talk about equilibrium or equilibration, which is the balancing between the assimilation and the accommodation. So, coming back to our schemas, what is assimilation? Assimilation is where the child matches the schema that is already known, and then they add some more fine qualities to that schema. Like I talked about, there are different types of dogs. So the child already has the schema for a dog. And how does assimilation come in? They would have seen, for example, a normal dog, and then this time they see a fluffy. When the child learns to differentiate the finer qualities of each dog, that means they are assimilating the different qualities of each dog to what they already know. So they would have discovered that the fluffy barks, it's four-legged, it's got a tail, and it's got floppy ears. But it's not exactly the same as, for example, a German Shepherd or a Rottweiler. These are different dogs, but they form the same category. So the fact that the child is able to differentiate the finer qualities of the same object, that means they are assimilating the information. That's the first concept under the schema, assimilation. So let's talk about now accommodation. Let's say this child sees another object, for example, that is similar to a dog, but it's not a dog. It may have the ears, it may have a short tail, it is four-legged, and it may make a sound that the child may think it's also a dog. And then the child will scream, "Hey mommy, look at the dog." Then the mother will say, "Oh baby, that's not a dog, it's actually a goat." You see, the child is using the old schema for how a dog looks like to generalize it, to take it to other four-legged animals that slightly look like a dog. But when the child is told that that's not actually a dog, it's a totally different animal in a different category, the child will have no option but to go through the process that we call accommodation. And this means that the schema will change to accommodate the new information. I know most of you with little kids, you have experienced a situation where a baby will call almost every other man that looks similar to their parent, to their dad. They will call them daddy. Usually that is because they just have the schema for a male adult. But over time, they will learn to differentiate who the male adult is and who their dad is. And because they'll keep shouting daddy to almost every other male that looks simply like their father. But as they grow and learn to refine those schemas, they will get the difference between their dad and any other male. So the process of accommodation is where the child does a little bit of changing. Like I said earlier, the concept is to accommodate the new information. And this will happen similarly to any other object. The child will use the information they already know, but now when they discover that that information is totally different from what they have experienced, even if they look similar, they will have to accommodate it. Even as adults, we go through such things. We would have learned a lot of different concepts as we interact and as we face the world. But sometimes things look similar, but they're not the same. And so when we are told that it's not the same, we have to accommodate. That means we have to make a new schema that is going to be directly responding to that new piece of information. So for example, in this case, the kid will have to form a schema for a goat. And they will have to also form a schema for an impala or a duiker, any animal that looks like a goat but they're different from a goat. So that means each and every animal will have their own fodder. Then finally we can talk about equilibrium. So equilibrium is where the cognitive equilibrium, now that means there is a balance between assimilation and accommodation. When these two match, they lead to a concept that we call cognitive equilibrium. However, if the schema that you already know fails to match with the new information, that leads to cognitive disequilibration. And that's where children usually struggle to live or adapt to new situation or to learn concepts. And that's why usually children will struggle. When they're struggling, they always want to go back to a point where they'll have equilibration, where what they already know is going to either be assimilated or accommodated. But once these two fail to balance, then it's cognitive disequilibration. So as you enjoy your festive season, learn new things, try to assimilate and try to accommodate new concepts that you're going to come across. From me and mine, it's Merry Christmas and prosperous New Year. See you until next time. Bye.